As the ManUp Charlotte Conference continues, we are joined right now by Dave Alpern, the president of Joe Gibbs Racing and author of the new book, Taking the Lead, Winning Business Principles That Fuel Joe Gibbs Racing. You can find it on takingtheleadbook.com. Dave, it's so great to have you a part of ManUp Charlotte. How are you?
Bryce, man, I'm doing awesome. What's up, man? Up, Charlotte. Wish I could be with y'all. I am in Nashville for an inaugural NASCAR race this weekend, so hoping that goes well back in Charlotte. Miss you guys today.
Absolutely. Well, we're thrilled to still have you involved, and we're going to focus our time on something very specific. It's very challenging, and the majority of us deal with this topic, wrestle with this topic, and you called it in chapter 17 of your book, achieving that elusive work-life balance. And so the first question, is work-life balance possible, and why is it so important?
Well, yes, it's possible. Now, it depends what your definition is. Again, there's, I think a lot of it depends on your stage of life. Okay. You know, we all have different stages. If you're single and you don't have kids, work-life balance looks a certain way. And that's prioritizing, what are the important things to you, your faith, your friends, what are some hobbies, maybe taking care of yourself. Then you get into the, married with kids stage, and work-life balance looks a little bit different, because now all of a sudden your ministry is your family. It's those kids, and prioritizing them. Some of the me stuff gets pushed to the back, but it's still important. And again, you may be in medical school right now. If you're in medical school, work-life balance for you is going to look a little different than maybe it is for someone else because of that stage of life that you're in. So the answer is, it is achievable. But the main thing that I talk about in the book, and that I would charge each of you with, is it doesn't happen organically. You have to be intentional about it. You can't just sit back and go, man, I have no work-life balance, and then say, well, I'm not really doing anything about it. It's because things are going to hijack your time, and your number one commodity in your life is your time. And so you have got to take control of the time that you are able to take control of. Again, some of it is already partitioned out for you. Got to sleep, you got to work, but being intentional and prioritizing it, and we can talk about specifically what some of that looks like. So the short answer is yes, it's doable. The true answer is it's hard, and you have to be intentional about it.
From your own experience in your life, what were some of the key changes that you had to make as your career continued to take off and you were finding success with Joe Gibbs Racing? How did you then balance the most important things in your life, faith and family?
Yeah, well, it starts with a hard issue, and that is, I had to come to a place where I honestly believed that my job wasn't my identity. And if you are not in that place, you're going to have a hard time prioritizing other things if your job is your identity. And let me say this, really, really hard in culture today, because what's the first thing, particularly men, ask other men when they meet them? Hey, what's going on? What do you do? It's the first thing you ask. And we never say, hey, I'm a great, I'm a follower of Christ, or I'm a great dad or a great husband. We say, well, I work at so-and-so, and it's this badge of honor. And so it starts with, do I, is work my identity, or is it not? And so coming to that place for me was kind of the first step. But I think for me early on, and actually in my new book, I draw is a very simple diagram, draw kind of circles where you start with your relationship with God, and then you got your family and your close friends, then other friends, then acquaintances, and et cetera, et cetera. And the idea is, the closer the group, the circles in the middle are the ones we should invest and be most intentional with our time. But what ends up happening is, if you took an inventory of your week, my guess is that outer circle, work, acquaintances, they end up hijacking more of our time than the circles in the middle. So part of it is figure out what work-life balance should look for you. Again, if you're just trying to start out a career, or you're running a business, I get it. It's hard. You're not going to get to do everything. So prioritize. Maybe for you, here's what work-life balance means. Maybe it's I want to exercise 30 minutes a day. I want to do a date night once a week. I want to be at the important things for my kids. I've got 3 close friends that I want to make sure I talk to every week. Okay, great. Make a list, plug it in. If you got to make a calendar deal for it, make it. I have I have a group of, I never had biological brothers, but I've got a group of guys that I call my band of brothers. And we all met the Lord through Young Life in high school, and we still keep up with each other. And we all live in different places. And so I will do calendar reminders once a week often for some of those guys where, hey, I know I'm going to be in my car for 20 minutes on the way home. I'm calling those guys. I'm not listening to sports radio on that day because I'm going to call my buddy. Or again, it's small things, but you have to be, my point is, be intentional about whatever it is for you. Or again, other things will hijack your time if you're not intentional with it.
Oh, I love that. The intentional word, I think, is key in all of this. And in part of your book too, you in this chapter about work-life balance, you talk a little bit about kind of the culture that we have in the work environment, where when somebody goes to something with their family, it's almost frowned upon, or you feel bad, or you hide about it. So tell the people
Yeah.
watching with Man Up what you mean about that.
Well, I actually have a phrase I call cheating on work. And before anyone thinks, it's not the scandalous type of cheating or doing anything dishonest, but it's a phrase that I use because think about it. Look, I signed up for a job that cheats on my personal life all the time. And hey, I signed up for it. And what I mean by that is a dinner, a kid's event, something, I'll take phone calls at all hours of the night. And that's just part of what I signed up for. My point though is work is rarely going to apologize for that. Okay. It's just expected that work is going to cheat on some things that are, it might be a date night, it might be whatever. Hey, there's things I signed up for that I've got to be responsible for. Yet on the flip side, for whatever reason in business, it's frowned upon when we cheat on works. And to your point, leaving early for a practice or even sometimes going on vacation, it's sort of like not a badge of honor anymore. And so my point is there has to be balance. Now, again, we've got to know that work is going to cheat on our personal life sometimes, and that's often what we signed up for. But don't be afraid, conversely, to cheat on work with the things that are important with you. One example and one illustration that I did earlier in my career was I would actually keep a list of, in my job, I would categorize things. There was have to do, could do, probably aren't going to do, but is also an option. And my point is, I could have gone to a dinner or a convention every day, literally every day. Early in my career, when I was single, I went to almost all of it. I was trying to network, and I was like, hey, that's part of me adding value is I'm going to all this stuff. As my kids got older, I started balancing. I would, all right, here's 2 dinners I absolutely have to go to. It's part of my responsibility. I signed up for this. I'm going to do it. I would tell my family, hey, I'm going to miss. Conversely, hey, my kids have a play or a pageant, or I just need some time. I need a date night. And there was something at work that, might have boosted me, but I had to say, nope, that's gone. I'm doing these other 2 things, but these 2 things I'm doing with my family. And again, don't beat yourself up. There's different stages in your career where you have more flexibility to do that. But as much as you can, you've got to make those decisions, because you can't, if you start communicating to your family or to your close friends or even your own, hey, keeping yourself healthy, that, oh, well, this dinner is really, really important. I got news for you. There's going to be something that's really, really important every day. It's just like the old adage, you could stay at work. Most people could work till midnight and there'd be work to do. At some point you leave and you go, this will be here tomorrow. You deal with the things you have to, and then you leave. So that's kind of a long way of saying you've got to be intentional. Sometimes it's making lists of, and again, it depends on what your job is and what stage you're in. But for me, it was choosing this is something that only I can do, and I really have to go to, okay, I'm going to do that. But this other thing that might be boosting my ego, or maybe this is good for my career path, but I don't have to go. I probably wasn't going to go because I needed to communicate to my family, your thing is more important to me than that thing.
I love that perspective. And I think it's so true, back to your point about the different seasons of life that we're in. And yeah, because when I think back when I was single, I'd say yes to everything. Yeah, I'll be there. Then when you get married, that changes. You check in with your wife and make sure you can do a certain number of things. Now I've got a young daughter, and that's changed even more so. And so I think giving ourselves grace oftentimes is key. And then go ahead.
I was going to say, but even if you're listening to this and you're single and maybe you don't have kids, look, it's what is there an area you want to serve? Is there an area you want to use your gifts? Or do you have friends that you want to, exercise, hobbies? those things are just as important in your stage of life as well, and you need to do those, because if work takes from you, you're not going to be as good at your job. I believe that. I mean, I remember asking a really a wise executive at Toyota, one of our partners, who's a believer. He's a great guy, and I asked him, what are some of the things that will make me the best president of Joe Gibbs Racing? And his exact answer was, you need to be the better you are at following Christ, and the better you are as a husband and as a dad, the better you'll be as the president of Joe Gibbs Racing. So I think that's great wisdom for all of us, that you have to have your own house in order, your own self in order, to be at your best at work. And that's counter to what we think, because we think, well, I gotta bust my butt and show them that it's the only thing that matters to me. Well, eventually you're going to burn out. And you're going to be of no use to them. So you've got to have balance, whatever stage you're in and whatever that looks like.
Amen. I love that. That's tremendous and so encouraging to hear. And I think the last question for you, Dave, as you've got this opportunity to be the president of Joe Gibbs Racing, and of course, Joe Gibbs is someone that we all look up to in so many different ways. And so, in regards to this work-life balance, what's something that you've learned from him as he's been that example within the organization?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because one of the things I talk about in the book is the struggle between wanting to be great and wanting to have work-life balance. And I would say, and if Coach was right next to me, I think he would say he struggled in that area and has some regrets. And look, and I grew up with Joe's oldest son, JD, and I actually learned a lot in that area from JD. One of the things JD used to talk to me about was he watched his dad, who was in 2 Pro Sport Hall of Fames, but he's in there because he slept at the office 3 nights a week often. And I remember JD saying, I'm probably not going to go as hard as my dad did. But he wrestled with that, because he said, I don't want to be average at everything. I want to be really good. So there's this constant struggle. And I've seen it with Coach, that he's in 2 Pro Sport Hall of Fames because he was all in with work. And again, did his best to balance time at home. But he would tell you with the NFL, he has some regrets. Again, he spent the night 3 nights a week in his office. Now, would he have gone to 4 Super Bowls if he didn't? I don't know. And so at some point there is a trade-off in your life. And I think at the end of the day, people often ask, hey, as a Christian businessman, what's the most important thing? I would say, well, the most important thing is to be really good at what you do, because nobody cares what you think if you stink. And so whatever field you're in, if you want a platform, you better be really good at what you do. And so that means taking work seriously, but not making it the most serious, not making it our identity. And again, for all of you, it is difficult. There isn't an easy answer. And if you feel like you've gotten out of whack one way or another, it's not, hey, start today. For those of you with small kids, I might leave you with this just as an encouragement, because Bryce, I know you have smaller kids. It's in my book, I have a journal entry in there that I wrote the night before my twins were leaving for college, and it'll make you cry as a dad. And I was basically saying, look, I got 1 night left and my kids are gone. And obviously they don't leave forever. They come back a lot, actually, which is good. But I had a saying when the kids were little, and that is, enjoy your kids, don't endure them. Often we think, I'm just going to endure the day. Hey, enjoy every minute that you've been entrusted, because of all the seasons in our lives, it's like the shortest one is that season we have when our kids are little. And then all of a sudden they grow up, and I'm going to be an empty nester, Lord willing, for 20, 30, 40 years, however many years the Lord gives me. But I only have small kids at home for a small amount of time. So when you're balancing your career and all these other things, again, start with what's important to me, and then be fiercely intentional with showing those people that are closest to you that you're important. Because, hey, they're not going to remember all the stuff that you did. They're just going to remember that dad loved them and prioritized them. That's all they're going to remember. So you need to do it, or they'll remember that too. So as best you can. And again, don't beat yourself up. Do the best you can with it.
Amen. Well, Dave, it's tremendous insight. And again, the book is called Taking the Lead, and encourage guys to check that out for some more encouragement from Dave. And so we appreciate you being a part of the ManUp Charlotte Conference, and so much wisdom being shared here at ManUp. And so thanks. There's Dave Alpern joining us here on ManUp Charlotte.